I took a stab at another collaboration with my buddy Roger. I took the second example that I created a few videos ago using the first few bars of the chords from the Katy Perry song, where I slowed it down and added some extensions on the chords and wrote a new melody. This is what I originally started with on my own. And then I played it for Roger with no melody, again, so as not to unduly influence him, and this is what he listened to. Like that. So, as we did before, he improvised a few takes over that pattern to come up with some ideas. I'm not going to play all of them for you, but I'll play you a couple. Here's some of the original improvisations that he came up with in trying to search out some melodic ideas to build on.
Ooh, ooh, oh, ooh, ooh, la,
That was the second take, or part of it, and I'll just play you a little bit of the next take. We don't have time to go through all of them, but just to give you an idea of how some of the improvisations developed. Notice how in both of these examples he was instinctively starting in a lower range and then moving up to a higher range, thinking as a songwriter in terms of a verse generating some interest and then leading to somewhere else where the drama builds a little bit. We ultimately settled on part of his last take, which you're going to hear in a few moments, but I want to move on right now and go to the next thing that we did. And Roger had an idea for a chord pattern for a chorus. He felt it should change. I was a little concerned that it ended on an E-flat major 7 and the verse begins on an A minor, which is a tritone away and might be a little bit of an unusual jump. But anyway, here's the chord pattern that he came up with for the chorus, or potential chorus. So it just sort of hangs wide open on that long, lingering E-flat major 7, which could be interesting. Here's the verse melody that we settled on, and we decided to make it a longer verse, a 16-bar verse, since it'll help build up to the chorus.
ooh, ooh, la, da, 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 da. Ooh, da, 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 da.
Now, of course, he's scatting here, not using real lyrics, and it'll, of course, get shaped a little bit as the lyrics happen. But let's move on. The next thing we did here is try to come up with a melody that would work nicely for the chorus. So I came up with this idea. Let me select the sound here, noodling around with this little 3-note motif. Roger immediately jumped on it and developed this melody. So this is a rough phrasing of the idea he came up with based on my few notes. Here it is. Now notice there's a sharp 11 in the melody over that E flat major 7 chord, the A natural, and that gives it a very distinctive sound. I liked it. Now the next thing we did was we had Roger sing that, and this is interesting because I want you to take notice of how he's phrasing, and it's different than the instrumental idea, but he's taking the main elements of it. I'm going to play you his vocalization, and then I'll play you the two of them together. So he made the phrasing much more vocal-like. Listen to this with the instrumental melody and his vocalizing at the same time. So he kept the main elements of this nice little line over the E flat major with the A natural in it and the little 3-note motif, but he sort of simplified the rhythm and repeated it the same way each time. So an interesting way to develop ideas using instrumental and vocalizing at the same time. Now the next thing we did is he wanted to experiment with some harmonies, and this was the first thing he came up with. Now singing in different octaves like that is a little bit out of his range, but the idea here is to generate ideas. So we refined that, and this is what he came up with for some vocal harmonies. Now the phrasing is a bit rough, but it's again about getting the ideas down at this point. So let's move on, and finally here's the chorus leading back into the verse. Now the transition from the E flat major 7 to the A minor is a bit unusual, but it's interesting sounding and it can work. There's enough of a hole here that we can maybe use a melodic or an instrumental sound or hook or device to link the two sections. Listen to what it sounds like. So it works nicely. I like that jump from the E flat to the A. So here we have a little hook we developed on the chorus, that nice little rhythmic phrase with the 3-part harmony. It can be a nice hook depending on the lyric, of course, and it can lead nicely back into the verse, or we can have the verse come first. We can start with the verse and go to the chorus. I'm not sure yet, really, at this point. This isn't a finished song. The lyric would help drive those types of structured decisions. But the idea here is to get creative and get the ideas down. You know, I look at songwriting like when you're learning an instrument, what do? You practice it. You practice the scales, the chords, you practice the instrument. And it's the same thing with songwriting. You practice songwriting. You get creative. Just get ideas down. They don't all have to be great. Don't be too critical. The idea isn't to write a gem every time. The idea is to write every time. Write something, and no matter what, you're going to learn and grow from it. It'll help you refine your chops, your songwriting chops. So here's a little example of a collaboration we did. I'm not saying it's a great song. In fact, I don't know if it'll ultimately work or not, but we have ideas here, and that's the important thing. See you in the next video.